Hello, and welcome to a very special edition of Connecting Consciousness. Many of you will know Dr. Jacques Bauer, and I'm really delighted to be able to bring him on because he's got some very exciting news through clinical trials which have been done regarding the BioShield. And I thought the best way really would be to invite Jacques on. He's got some excellent slides to show you, and he can talk it through. I'm not the scientist, he is. And it's a game changer. It's absolutely a game changer. This will really show in both the visuals and in the science that have been done, the tests, what the BioShield can really achieve. So first of all, welcome Jacques. I'm going to call you Jacques rather than Dr. Bauer because I think that's a bit too formal. So welcome.
Hello, Simon. And there is another good reason not to call me a doctor because I'm not a doctor. I'm clinical pharmacist. I'm clinical research associate. I've been working 30 years ago in what became one of the most important pharmaceutical companies. And I had a lot of background in the central nervous system as well as on the immune system, which is still a passion as of today. And this is the reason why I'm really so happy to share with you some results that I've been striving to go through for the last 6 months or even more. I was not alone, of course. I'm in contact with a wonderful integrative medical center located in Switzerland, directed by Dr. Nathalie Calam, who is one of the best specialists in everything which is related to electrosmog, but also hyper-electrosensitivity of patients. And as you know, this is really a very prevalent problem nowadays. The problem is that we have very few specialists really able to determine what needs to be done and how can we measure the impact and the efficacy of some tools, not only directly, but mainly indirectly, as it has proven to be the case.
Right, that's great. I mean, when you start talking the science, I'm going to be very grateful for those visuals because I think it'll be easier for people like me actually to grasp what you're saying. So look, it's over to you, Jacques. Please, talk us through the history really a little bit and then go into the science. And remember, please, that most of the people listening will not have your expertise and knowledge. So to try and make it so easy so people like me can follow it and understand it. Over to you.
That will be with a great pleasure. Shall I share my screen?
Yes, then you can pull up all the bits and pieces you need.
Yes, with a great pleasure. Can you hear me well?
100%, not a problem.
Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you so much, Simon. So this is the center I was talking to you about. As you can see, this is not a ghost center. This is a real, very efficacious and honorable center known for the field of integrative medicine, which means not to split disciplines from each other, but rather to try to find bridges between various disciplines where most of the people are trying to dig holes between them. So integration is a very key word for me, and I've been working with Dr. Nathalie Calam for several years, and I could really appreciate the level of humility and efficacy and professionalism of Dr. Calam and her group. And that's the reason why a couple of months ago, when we were attacked by the BBC, I said, now enough is enough. And I asked Dr. Calam to help us setting up a clinical trial, which is called Efficacy Trial, Double-Blind versus Placebo. And this was the only way for me to really show what was the efficacy of the 5G BioShield key. And for those of you who do not exactly know what we are talking about, a double-blind efficacy study means that patients came into the room where some analyses were performed with them, and of course with their informed consent. But none of us would know whether the USB key that was given to them for evaluation was the real one with the nanolayer of Professor Lakisevich, or whether there was a fake one. None of us could know, neither the people making the experiments nor the subject himself or herself, which is quite important for the objectivation of the results, as you very well might imagine. So there are two things that I would like to share with you tonight. We made so many other experiences, but two experiences that I've selected, which seems to me so well representative of the results that we had by testing tens and tens of people with their informed consent. Of course, within the frame of a very specific protocol. As you know, I've been working as clinical research associate for many years, so that's my kind of piece of bread, I would say. I know exactly how to organize that. So does Dr. Nathalie Kalam. So the first thing that I would like to show you, which is here, and I hope this is clearly visible on the screen, this is a measurement which is done with a device called Dynamica, which has been set up by, ironically, Russian scientists, which has many properties, but one of them is to give us the possibility to measure what is called the heart rate variability, which means, as you can see on the first part here, on the upper part, there is normal ECG for electrocardiogram of the people that we were measuring for 5 minutes. But what was extremely interesting is not only to measure the heartbeats, but the interval between every heartbeat. And we might think that if those intervals are very regular, that would be a proof of good health. But Dr. David O'Hare, who has found the cardiac coherence many years ago, 30 years ago, has proven the opposite, which means that if those intervals are really similar, it means, in other terms, that the heart has lost its ability to adjust itself to any kind of external or internal stresses, like environmental stresses, but also psycho-emotional stresses, biological stresses, and whatever. So that's very important to see those parameters, because it gives us the possibility to make several measurements in terms of level of adaptability of the subject. The vegetative regulation, which is the balance between the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system, as well as the neurohumoral regulation, which has to do with endocrine system, psycho-emotional state, and complex state index. Of course, this video would be too short to describe to you in details all the mechanism of action and how these devices are functioning, but there are some very high-level description and extended descriptions on the 5dbioshield.com website. So if anybody is interested to know more about that, they are very welcome to go and to consult the site, which I'm so happy to share with you, has never been shut down. So adaptation level, and this is when the lady came into the room, that was last 22nd of June, as you can see. And if I described in just briefly about the first level, as regard the middle level, which is called rhythmogram, this is very much related to the cardiac coherence and the heart rate variability, which is so important to express the state of health of someone. And as you can see here, we have some slight waves which are present here, but which are indicating that there is not a big difference between the longest interval and the shortest interval between every heartbeat. So this patient is a kind of not, I would say, average state, as you can see here. But the point is that we then made some further test, asking her to take a mobile phone and to make a call for 15 minutes only on the same day. And after she called for 15 minutes, we again made the same measurements. And you can see the dramatic difference that could be observed in terms of adaptation level, vegetative regulation, neurohumoral regulation, psycho-emotional state, and the complex state index. it dropped down dramatically. And you can see that all the little waves that we were able to see previously have almost completely disappeared, which is not a good sign. And you can see that the ECG was absolutely regular here on the same flat line. And you can see that now it's no more the case, and we are starting to look at really some starts of troubles that are not really a very good sign, if I could say so. Now, what did we do? We gave the USB BioShield key to this lady, who held it on a little pocket right near to her heart. And she did it for 45 minutes. And after those 45 minutes, she was kindly requested to use her mobile phone unprotected and to make an additional 15-minute telephone call. And these are the results that we got. And those results, anybody, even not being really specialized in that field, can see that there are some tremendous differences which have been observed. And after we opened the envelope, we found out that this lady had the real key, what nobody knew before we started to make this measurements. And you can see that all her parameters came back to almost the highest possible potential of that specific lady. And you can see that the rhythmogram is starting to show some real big waves, which are the manifestation of a much higher potential from the heart, which we were absolutely delighted to see. I can show you that in a different manner. You can see here on the left side a kind of diagram chart showing again the vegetative regulation index, the neurohumoral regulation index, psycho-emotional state, adaptation level. And on the bottom, you can see that this lady was using, so to say, only 27% of her real biological and psycho-emotional potential. And she was in the average of every other lady of her age in Europe. Then she was giving a call, and as you can see again, we can see a dramatic drop down of all parameters. Everybody can see that very easily. And once she made the last telephone call, after having held the BioShield key for 45 minutes, this is the results that we obtained. And you can see the results without and with the BioShield key for the same 15 minutes telephone call. This is absolutely brilliant. And you could see that her blood and her biological parameters raised their level to such a way that you could see here a bettering of 69% compared to the average of ladies of her age in Europe. This is absolutely tremendous. And believe me, this cannot be left to the chance. There is a real process behind, as I will show you further with the blood analysis. We've got same results as regard the age at time of survey of this lady. She's 65, but her biological age was 73 years old because those cells had a strong tendency to age much quicker than what they were supposed to do. And I just would like to give a brief outline about the biological age. There is a Nobel Prize called Professor Alexis Carrel, who showed by taking up a couple of cells from a chicken heart that he brought into a nutritional milieu on laboratory. You know that the average span life of a chicken is more or less 6 years. And this guy, Nobel Prize, has been able to maintain those cells alive for between 28 and 37 years, which is really showing the difference between the chronological age of our cells and the biological age. And you could see a dramatic drop down of the biological age, which means the vibratory level of the cells from 73 to 33, which is, to my knowledge, unprecedented in all measurements which have been done in the world. We can see as well on the upper part the level of harmonization at the brain level of that lady, which dramatically increased from 8 to 96%, which is again an incredible result. You could see that this lady was extremely tired after the telephone call. She got some delta waves, brain waves, which were at 31%, which is normally what she could have when she's in deep sleep, but that was not the case. And you can see a considerable modification of the peaks of those waves as they were recorded after she held the key for 45 minutes and made this telephone call. You can see also the red brain, which is going back to blue brain. I don't want to go into details, but I think that only the vision of it is self-explanatory. The same with the level of energy of this lady. On the blue part, you can see the level of energy that people, the amount of energy that people are able to grasp from outside, from the water, from the sun, from the food, from the air, and so on and so forth. And the red side means the level, not, I would say, the energy that they are able to store into their body. And again, you can see some dramatic differences. How would I say, adding up the 25 to the 21, which was giving only 46. And now she's got access to a level of energy, which is absolutely outstanding. And by the way, that proves very well, there are so many people thinking that bettering of their health state will take years, which is not true. It's more like a quantum status. When you are making a quantum leap, you are going from a certain level of energy to another one without really going through the chronological scale, but more on the vertical level. And this is what is beautiful. And this is also what, by the way, is called a miracle. Let's imagine, Simon, that someone would take about 22 years in order to get some improvement. We would call that evolution, but we would never call it miracle. So there is really something like a quantum leap. And this is the reason why resonance has such a great impact on the biology. You can see as well the neurohumoral regulation index, which is going from 8 to 100, which doesn't mean that 100 doesn't mean that this is the same 100 of this lady like the one that you would have. It just means that this lady is getting back to 100% of her own potential, which is the most important thing. And I would like to finish that presentation of the first part by showing also the tension index. And you can see that this lady had only 3 different type of intervals between every heartbeat. Like, for example, she had about 228 intervals between every heartbeat, which were between 68 and 0.68 and 0.72 seconds. The less intervals you have, the worse your condition is. But the human biology is so divinely done that as soon as they are brought to some energetic level, which is really aligned to the divine self, you can see that immediately, for example, the heart is able to get back to a much more normal state. As you can see here, we've got now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different types of intervals, which means that there is a much higher level of adjustment that you can also see with the tension index. You can see also the balance between the sympathetic and how do you say, parasympathetic nervous system. And you can see here 734, which means that the level of stress was incredibly high by that lady. And you can see that it dropped down to 113, which means that there is much, much, much less energy needed in order to keep the balance. And this is not all. I just want to show you 3 last results before sharing with you the blood results that I have. And this will be blurred, of course, for obvious reasons, but I want to show you something which is outstanding as well. That's the follow-up of the same lady that we have tested. And I just wanted to show you this example because that represents very well the synthesis of most of the other studies that we've done with tens and tens of patients. But look at that. The level of reliability of the survey is very high at 91%. In other terms, we can really rely on the results which are presented to us through the measurements which has been done. Again, you've got the heartbeats of the patient and the ECG. And now, that is so interesting to see that this was the level of the lady as regards her energetic level. I would like to precise that this is not a specific camera which has taken the aura of this lady, but this has been calculated by very high-level algorithms, which enables us to have a reproduction of the aura level of this lady, which means the level of light that she's spreading around, and that everybody of us has, of course. This has been proven also by Professor Fritz Albert Popp, who was the first one to discover the presence of the biophotons. Now, after having made the telephone call, you can see that the level of energy of this lady dropped down considerably, but very, very happily, once she was in touch with the key for 45 minutes and had the additional 15 minutes of telephone call, this is the results what we got. And by Jove, it's not something which has been invented or designed or drawn or whatever. These are the practical results that we are getting almost every day by testing those people. And you will much more understand now why I'm really lightly smiling when I see some comments on internet from people who do not even know what they are talking about. I do know what I'm talking about because I've been testing that for months and months among other products. And these are the results. How do you want us to ignore those results when they are so self-explanatory? And this is exactly the same with the measurements of the chakras that everybody knows are kind of energetic centers turning around in the body. And you can see again from the left side to the right side that we have dramatic improvements of the functioning of those chakras, which were reflected by, of course, the sense of feeling that this lady had after she was in touch with the key. And I'm getting so many witnesses and testimonies every week about people just saying, thank you for having brought us that technology. I know it's so incredibly active, whatever can be said. And that's the reason why I'm very quiet about that. And the latest results I wanted to show you is about the meridians. The meridians, as you know, are kind of motorways of information and energy, which have been discovered by the Chinese medicine so many millenniums ago, and that have very specific patterns, energetic patterns that can be measured through such technologies like the Dynamica one. And just to make it very clear and easy to understand, you have here the description of every meridians here, for example, LU for lung, and then you've got the large intestine, you've got the stomach, you've got the spleen and pancreas, etc., etc. You are all able to read the right parts of the screen. But what is really, again, so impacting and so interesting to follow up is the fact that most of the meridians here on the left side, after she had this 15-minute telephone call, and which was even worse than when she came into the room, that was when she entered the room, and you could see that some of the meridians, for example, the kidneys and the pericardium, were still working properly. This is the green color. When you've got the brown color, it means that they are working really average. You can see 50%, 51%, so on and so forth. And when you've got them red, it's a real alert signal. You can see that, for example, the heart meridian was only working at 4%. And once she's made the telephone call, it was 1%. It's not a kind of manifestation of the mind. These are just measurements and results that we are getting every day. Not only me, but all the people who are working on that field and who are even making the measurements by themselves. I'm not the only one to do that, of course, but I'm trying to coordinate it because it needs to. So you can see that most of the results on the right side are back to normal. You can see the spider web, which is almost completely extended now. And you can see that the meridian of the heart, which was working at 1% only, which is almost nothing, dropped up to 24%. I do not say, sorry, that this is the end of it. We are on the process, on an evolutionary process. But you can see already after 45 minutes, there are so many dramatic changes which are occurring that I'm just wondering who would, how would I say, bet or take the risk to say that they don't deserve such rehabilitation of their own health and spirit. This is something absolutely outstanding. Now, I would like to show you two last slides, Simon, if you allow me to do that. This is about the blood testing. We've got a very specific specialty, which is called the dark field microscopy testing. The image that you see here is the image of blood of people which have been taken from, in our case, directly from the ear, because the blood is then very close to the brain. And I found a very simple definition of the dark field microscopy testing. This is a blood test in which we take a drop of blood and look at it immediately using a special form of lighting that allows us to see living cells without staining. It provides a look at overall health, microorganisms, and maybe detected distortions of red blood cells as well. And this is so important because you have to remember that blood cells have iron atoms and molecules inside, which are by definition very sensitive to electromagnetism. So what we have done is just taken the blood of those people, like we did it with the same lady that I'm showing in a most overall and complete manner tonight. So the first column that you have displays the blood of this lady when she entered the room. We took immediately just 2 or 3 drops of blood from her ear and put it on the microscope, under the microscope, and look at it. So without going into details, you can see that every red cell is completely bound to every other one, which give the impression that you've got some stacked lines of blood. We called it the money rolls, and that's exactly how it looks like. And of course, this is not a good sign of health, because that means that the blood cells have lost their ability to work by themselves and to be in a space where they have their complete degrees of freedom, which is not the case here. Now, on the second column, you can see that lady after she made this 15 minutes call with a mobile phone, and you can see that the situation has got even worse. Everybody can see that. And on the first column, you can see what is happening, because it appeared that that lady was given the right key, but none of us could know it at the beginning. And she was given the right key, and after 45 minutes with the real 5G BioShield key and 15 minutes with the mobile phone, you can see something which is more like champagne bubbles. It looks like that, doesn't it? Yeah. And this is absolutely beautiful. You can scroll through internet and you can browse and whatever you want. You will always see some similar results, and this is absolutely beautiful, because it means that those people have regained their autonomy. And moreover, you can see some little white dots like this one here that I'm showing. I hope that everybody can see it. And these are called microbiomes, and they have been discovered by a scientist called Enderlein in 1921, I guess. And they were not present at the beginning, as you can see, but these are the signs of a blood vitality retrieved. So this is so impressive to see the difference with those blood parameters and analysis, that I'm really wondering who could object about the, how would I say, the reality of those things. It's just undisputable. That's the way it is. This is the results that we are getting every day. And I strongly invite people to do their own testing and see what is the results. And I would like to conclude tonight by that last blood analysis test, which is even increasing the legitimacy of what I showed you with the previous one. This is another patient who was part of the double-blind versus placebo study. And on the first column, you can see again all those red cells which are completely stacked with each other, which is really not a good sign of health. The second column, you can see the same patient blood testing after having made his 15-minute Stefan call. And as you said it yourself, Simon, in a previous conversation, you realized and admitted that the situation was even worse than with the first column, didn't you? Now, as regard the third column, this is where it begins to be so interesting. The third column is the column about the blood testing that we obtain by having given the key to this lady, which reveals after the analysis to be the fake device, which means that was the real key, but without the QNL, the nano layer, put from Professor Lakisevich. And then on the fourth column, we gave to the same patient, this time, another key which revealed to be the right one. And we could see on the same patient, and it was so important, how his own blood was reacting as a different manner between the third column and the fourth column. And again, we are having those microbiomes that you can see here, those little white spots, which are increasing more and more. You can see many of them on the bottom right part of the bottom. It's absolutely unbelievable. And you can see also that the red cells have retrieved their sovereignty, I would say. And this is what, of course, I wish for everybody at many other levels, to refine and to retrieve our sovereignty. So looking at that, having all people working on that, scientists with a high reputation for more than 35 years and getting to the same results, what would you think if you were, all of you looking at this video, in my shoes, except that admitting in a very humble manner that we are facing a scientist like Professor Lakisevich, who obviously does know much more than anybody else in that field of bioresonance, and all the work that is done since 1 year, to the point that now he has made more than 30 publications in peer-reviewed committees journals like the International Journal of Science and Research. And I have just to say thank you for such people dedicating their life to better the life of others, as he obviously is doing. That's what I had to share with you today.
Well, as you say, we did have a quick look beforehand, but you didn't obviously go into it in the detail you have today, Jacques. And my first point, I think, is when anybody watches this video, they will understand why certain people are attacking you and me and the organization, because this is revolutionary.
Yeah.
This is another part or an aspect that will set humanity free. Therefore, if we understand that there is a group of people who don't like that path, of course they're going to attack it. But what you've done today with this video is to give it, well, there always was credence, but what you've done is you've shown it in a way for a lay person to be able to see it and understand it. And that's what's important, because in a real medical facility, in a real medical situation, you have done tests which stand up because they've been done as one would expect them to have been done, and the proof is beyond doubt. Now, that's really important, and I'm so grateful that, you know, there are people like you and Professor Lekevich on the earth, because, you know, this does need to go out to people, and that's why I threw my weight behind you, because I believed in you, and I believed in the professor, and I believed in the product. So what's really good tonight is that we are doing this recording, which will go out fairly soon, I hope, which gives proof to people that this is a real life-changing device. And
Undoubtedly.
yeah, and no wonder we're all being attacked. Absolutely.